Now, dynamic spawning of the infected. As I mentioned earlier, the DayZ mod spawned infected and loot via triggers. Now, it's not a system that we support anymore, so we moved to something that was far more robust and dynamically configurable, the central loot economy and the servlet and its tools. This allowed the mod, as I said, to feel as if there were more infected when there actually weren't. Going out the gate, we moved away from the triggers, and we do handle this as a global spawn. So upon server initialization, there's the infected are spread out between all the configured areas globally, regardless of whether or not players are there. And the areas on this new system are able to be configured with the zone generation tool for a minimum and maximum per player. So what that means is essentially, let's take Zelenogorsk, and let's say one player enters Zelenogorsk. Now, there's already, before he gets there, there's the base amount of infected that might be there. And when he enters the area defined in this tool, the minimum and maximum potential infected spawn per player are checked. And X number of infected are spawned within a certain radius of him within this area because he enters. As other players enter, they can spawn more, so that the higher the group of players, the higher the saturation of infected, as if they're drawn towards these players. And the restock or respawn value, however you want to call it, will allow players to actually clear an area out. They're not going to continue to again and again infinitely spawn. There will be, depending on how it's configured, a good amount of infected, and you'll have to spend time to clear it out. But it's possible to actually clear out and make an area safe until the respawn timer allows for a respawning of infected in that area. And this is a brief little look at the early version of the zone generator tool being used to configure the dynamic spawning of infected. Now, what we have here on this next slide is, and it might be dark on your monitor depending on the brightness, so you might want to switch to a different monitor if it appears too dark. But this is just an example of the dynamic spawning while we were still working on it run a bit crazy. This is before we switched over to the new infected models, but this is a single player continuously spawning infected in Svetlo. Now, all of these infected are spawned via the dynamic spawning and not via the global spawning that normally happens.